Hi, how have you been today? Hope everything's going okay with you. Is it? The video that we will be doing today is going to be a bit longer than usual, so you might want to take a seat while watching this, okay? Let's begin. Our subject for today is a book, one that was widely read, talked about, and discussed in the 60s, that was attempted to be made in a movie multiple times that went pretty badly. Have any of you ever heard of a science fiction book called Dune? I'm guessing not, but I'll tell you anyway. For those who don't know, Dune is a book written in the year 1965 by Frank Herbert. If you don't know the plot, I'll explain it to you too. It goes something like this. The year is 10,191 AG, after Guild, and we live in a galaxy-spanning empire, loosely based on the Holy Roman and Ottoman empires. This empire is ruled by feuding nobles, a very paranoid emperor, and guilds that have corporate monopolies over trade. The most valued thing in this empire is a magic spice called melange. The spice melange is an all-purpose chemical. It has the ability to triple the human lifespan, makes it possible for people to transfer ancestral memories to one another, unlocks or enhances the capability of humans for the ability to tell the future, and can also act as a fuel source to make faster than light possible in cultures where computers have been outlawed by religious groups. However, there is a great price to pay whenever you have to use melange. First off, melange has properties similar to real-life narcotics. I mean this in the way that it's described as being a sweet-tasting substance that tastes like cinnamon, yet has the ability to create withdrawals that can kill the user. This substance is also highly addictive to eat, so you might want to stay away from this if you're living in that universe. Another side effect to prolonged exposure to spice is that it can horrifically mutate you, often to the point where you're barely recognizable as human anymore. Imagine looking less like a person, more like something from outer space just because you took too much spice. Oh, and if you think putting melange in your diet is worth your time, please bear this in mind. It only grows on Arrakis, a desert planet that is very, very dry, has sandworms that are big enough to eat a building, and barbarian clans that are willing to kill you just because they're paranoid. Now, let's get into the plot. Emperor Shaddam IV has ruled the universe for 10,000 years. He is a very paranoid, greedy, and dangerous man who knows no bounds. One noble clan learned this the hard way during the Great Spice War. He ordered the destruction of an entire satellite harboring illegal spices and bombarded the family with meteorites for months on end. Lesson learned? Do not mess with Shaddam. One day, Shaddam learns that House Atreides has started gaining tremendous moral and political influence over the other houses of this system. It gets to the point where this house has now control over Arrakis, because Shaddam allowed it. Now, House Atreides consists of Paul, his father Duke Leto, and his mother Jessica. Now, they don't know this at the time, but Shaddam has set them up to fall, because Arrakis was formerly owned by the barbaric Harkonnens, the rival house to the Atreides family, consisting of the Baron and his nephews. It gets worse, actually. Shaddam has given the Harkonnens military backup and enhancements that his men use. This is so that the Harkonnens can waylaced to a clan they had a 1,000-year grudge with, and Shaddam doesn't look like the one doing it. To add to this issue, Shaddam has also sent some of his most elite followers to kill any witnesses and back up the Harkonnens if they're in a situation of disadvantage. As the Atreides stay on Arrakis, they notice something is off about the situation. One evening, the Harkonnens eventually launch their attack, destroying everyone involved except for Jessica and Paul. The Duke is killed in the conflict but manages to dwindle down some of their men. The Harkonnens don't seem to realize this at the time, but they didn't realize that Paul and his mother escaped. So, thinking they have a victory, they decide to celebrate and report the news back to Shaddam. However, unbeknownst to everybody involved in the conflict, Paul has not only escaped, but he has also integrated himself with one of the clans of the region. Posing as a chosen savior to these people, he decides to overthrow Imperium and decide to save everybody from the Harkonnens and Shaddam. However, there is a catch. Paul has visions of a bad future, and he has no idea whether or not he will create a good future or a bad future for his people. The rest of the story, without going into spoilers, is commentary on belief, following charismatic leaders, and the debate of whether or not supernatural things exist in the world. I wouldn't recommend the book, but it's very interesting to think about. Now, Dune was always planned to be adapted into a film. One of the people to take interest in this film was Alejandro Jodorowsky, a very surrealist film director from Chile. He was known for making films that contain a lot of disturbing imagery, psychedelic visuals, and plots that are hard to describe on paper, and I wouldn't recommend them either. They're very disturbing and come off like somebody who wrote this while altered in a way. Now, the problem was Jodorowsky never actually read Dune, and he wasn't on good terms with the author, but he still wanted to adapt the book anyway. He wanted to create a film that expand the minds of young viewers who watched it and talk about spiritualism. But the problem is the book condemns that perspective, basically talking about how blind belief in anything can cause you to do great evil. Along with the fact that messianic archetypes in real life are bad news. To put this in a more simplistic perspective, that would be like being selected to voice Mario and not realizing that Mario is supposed to be a video game character and not like some abstract concept. So Jodorowsky assembled his dream team. He had Pink Floyd as the soundtrack, H.R. Geiger from Aliens as the art director, he had David Carradine, Orson Welles, Salvador Dali, and Mick Jagger as characters in the movie. And this is the weird part. Orson Welles he met at his favorite restaurant and asked him, "Hey, you want to be in my movie?" And he said,
"Sure, I guess so. What is this movie about anyway?"
"No, I have doubts about the cast, but that's just because I've never seen Salvador Dali act in anything. Does anyone have any records of him?" Also, according to reports, Salvador Dali was a prima donna. He wanted to be the highest paid actor in Hollywood, and it ate up half the movie's budget doing this thing. It was like a film that cost the earth and was made on a monkey's paw. Next, Jodorowsky had his teenage son as Paul. However, he put his son through one heck of a training regimen. I have no idea why his wife was okay with this. His son's training regimen included martial arts, swordsmanship, and knife fighting. This practice lasted 6 hours a day, 7 days a week, and 2 whole years. It has yet to be confirmed on whether or not his son had any choice in that matter or if he was okay with it. So, now obtaining $10 million, Jodorowsky decides to pitch his movie to studio execs. However, there were a few other problems with this. You see, the film's pre-production was dead in the water. Jodorowsky was able to secure $10 million without studio interference, yet he needed $5 million to boost the film and get it off the ground. Despite the odd choices, the studio execs would ask him how many hours he wanted. It was estimated that he wanted 7 to 14 hours a movie. It isn't confirmed which one, but it is confirmed that it was a number of hours that isn't necessary for a film. And they found out he wasn't willing to compromise this sort of thing. So they killed the project, and Jodorowsky had no other choice but to quit. However, this did not permanently kill Dune's production. You see, after Jodorowsky's vision fell apart, the producers decided to turn to a new director who they could trust. Now, this new director was considered for Return of the Jedi. He made a critically and commercially successful biopic who made him a popular commodity in the industry, but was also known for making weird art house movies. This man was named David Lynch, the guy who would later make Twin Peaks. You gotta be kidding me. They picked him for this thing? Traded one art gone mad for another. Due to Lynch's alien style and sheer complexity of the book, the already complex plot became borderline incomprehensible to some viewers. It honestly got to the point where feeders had to hand out printed plot summaries just for people to understand what the heck was going on in that movie. This 1984 adaptation of Dune is mostly famous for bizarre imagery, all-star cast, and elaborate set designs. Debate on its quality varies, though it is considered liked by some circles of people who are into Lynch's film directing style. While its quality is debated, it has often been used as an example of how not to make a blockbuster film. After Jodorowsky's project was cancelled, he was actually afraid to hear that David Lynch would be the one doing it. because he was afraid of Lynch's talent and charm. He did feel Schadenfreude when it turned out not so great, though. However, I don't think Jodorowsky's version would be any better, to be honest. Even if we ignore that he misinterpreted the message, something of that project has emerged pretty recently. This happened like in 2015, but a sample of his script had emerged on eBay of all things. This script is a goldmine of crazy. The framing device of Jodorowsky's Dune entails dog-like humanoids discovering a museum that was formerly run by humans before their extinction. In this exhibit lies a giant crucified robot that projects the rest of the film out of its eyes as a framing device. One of the storyboards shows the protagonists having to enter and leave the Emperor Shaddam's palace. They do so through a giant gateway shaped like a clown. Also, in one of the storyboards done by Jodorowsky, there's a scene where the Baron and one of his nephews are talking. During this very important conversation they're having of their evil plan, one of the nephews is very stressed out at the moment and proceeds to smoke a cigarette. He can't find the match, so he proceeds to use a dead butterfly on the ground to light the cigarette up. There's also a scene where the Harkonnen army finalizes their conquest of Arrakis. They do this trick in a manner that's so vulgar, I'm not even going to describe it. I don't think Jodorowsky could ever publish this thing. Jodorowsky was asked about this eBay draft. He had this to say.
Oh, that wasn't me. It looked like me, but wasn't me. I'd say it's a false script with an idiot drawing.
Well, it was a pleasure talking to you all. See you soon!